This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, and it is 6:01. I'm gonna start.
Recording in progress.
Okay, and let's roll call in and get this meeting started. Lori
Garcia here.
Megan
Harvey here.
Ben
Hersey here.
Maren
Goldstein here.
Mayor
Mary LaChapelle here.
and Cynthia Kwasinski here. Good night. Have a good evening. And welcome to the March 8th school committee meeting. Boy, I'll get that straight in a minute. Let us start by, we're going to be admitting a number of people, so there'll be a bit of a delay every once in a while. Megan's going to do that, right? And I'll keep doing it while Megan goes over correspondence, which is our first venture tonight. Is there correspondence and gifts?
Yes, we
And
can
I'll
start
take
with
over.
correspondence.
Okay.
So bear with me. We've received a lot of correspondence. It's been a larger gap than we often have between school committee meetings, and we have several ongoing areas of concern. And so there's a lot of emails. I will try to summarize accurately and concisely. Many of the emails we received were about tonight's upcoming discussion of the district mask policy. We've received some email and communication from members of our community who are high risk for a variety of reasons, including family members with cancer, who have suppressed immune functioning, immunocompromised folks, and families who have unvaccinated family members, who wrote to request that the school committee be cautious in their discussion of the district mask policy, requesting that masks are continued, including from Andrea St. John and Dr. Joe Pater, who also sent a letter signed by 221 members of the broader community. We also received a number of emails asking school committee members to vote to approve a mask optional policy in our district, citing the recent decrease in case rate and updated guidance from the CDC, including David Bartone, Dr. Marissa Carreri, Erin Schwab, Jennifer Ulrich, David, my apologies if I mispronounce your names, Cratchambone, Kevin Torchia, Laura Mattia, Ellen Prevey, Desiree Gribby, Johanna Andrioli, Dave Murrett, Amanda Judd, and Lisa Hibbert, who also, I want to note, specifically wrote back to denounce the protest outside of Senator Pepin, which was appreciated, in which maskers were yelling at children. We received similar but more strongly worded emails from other community members, including Jess and Mike Keefe, Shelley Fournier, Kara Caziglio, Megan Scott, Jessica Sansusi, Catherine Sandler, and along those lines, members of the school committee received a certified letter and an email with that same letter containing a request based on the Freedom of Information Act, Sunshine Act, and Open Records Law, signed by 11 adults in the community and 3 children, with a list of demands to be met before legal action would be considered by that group. We also received emails from staff within the district requesting that the school committee vote to lift the mask mandate, including from Amy Gauger, Andrea McCullum, Jill Pasquini-Torchia, and Jody Alatalo, who also included additional data on the increase in the number of children who qualify for reading intervention services in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade in our district, and the ways in which masking creates challenges in learning how to read. I will now move on to other areas of correspondence. We received an email from Kay Thompson requesting information and clarification on open meeting law and public speak policies, which was communicated back to that individual. We received a number of emails from members of our community who are concerned with the proposed budget and the budget discussions that are ongoing, particularly as they relate to a reduction in teaching positions, pointing out important information such as small class sizes are value of the district, requesting that we keep classes under 20 students per class, which is important in any year and in any grade level, but particularly as we are coming out of a period in which learning was so disrupted over the past 2 years. One email in particular outlined the need for this upcoming time for a level service budget as compared to a level funding budget, or even small increases of 1%, 2%, or 3%, because an increase of even up to 3% would essentially be a decrease in the level of services we are able to provide and would require a reduction in teaching positions. Parents also voiced in these emails their support for teachers in the district, really praising the teachers who are in this district and the way that they have supported students throughout the pandemic, and been there for students, and expressing support for making sure they feel okay going forward. And that list included from Kira Henninger, Megan Davis, Melissa Zeimer, Emily Bova, Lindsay Frank, Elise Langer-Smith, Stephen Andrade, Carrie Wessel, Laura Scott, and an anonymous message from a teacher who was shared through administration of a community social media group, Alyssa Pratt, but the message was not Alyssa's, the message was an anonymous message from a teacher within the district. We also received a few updates on the proposed Wait Till 8th program, primarily from Leah Ewing and also from Scott Callahan, sort of in conjunction, including gratitude for including a link to the Wait Till 8th program on the district parent resources webpage, information on how the program promotes equity within the district by providing an opt-out option, an update to the degree in which collaboration is possible with Easthampton Healthy Youth Coalition and the PTO, both of which are limited given their current scope and vision and mission statement. Also offering to host a question and answer session for parents and or for school committee. She also included a link to a video that was put out from the superintendent of the Hatfield Public Schools that explains the Wait Till 8 program and the equity issues, or the equity, way it solves equity issues specifically. And then some additional questions about our tech curriculum and our off and away policy, particularly what it is, how it's working, and what evidence we have of effectiveness. Finally, we received an email from the Easthampton Band Boosters expressing their concern about the rehearsal and performance space for the middle school band at Mountain View Elementary School, Mountain View, on the middle school side. They cited issues associated with sound quality, the physical space, and any coordinating retention of students. And that will do it for correspondence.
So we need to mute.
I just did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. And we have gifts, correct? Take a
We
breath.
do. Yes.
And then we'll talk about gifts.
Okay. We do have a gift this week, and I'd like to make a motion to approve with gratitude and appreciation a very kind donation of 500 KN95 masks that are specifically child-sized masks from Phoebe Reader-Zan and Christian Zan Reader of Comics and More in Easthampton. It was very generous.
I second that.
Okay, there we go. Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Megan,
Megan Harvey, aye.
Ben,
Ben Hersey, aye.
Maren,
Maren Goldstein, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
and Cindy Kuzensky, aye. Thank you. So now we're switching things up a little, and we're going to do our student representative update now, so that you don't have to wait forever to let us know what's going on.
Thank you. So I don't have much to update you on tonight, but first off, I would like to talk about our February Spirit Week. So 12th grade came in first place, 11th grade came in second, 9th grade came in third, and 10th grade came in fourth. So far this year, 12th grade has kept up the lead with the most Spirit points overall, but there is one more Spirit Week to go, so we're not going to count anyone out. And right now, Student Council is working on plans for the final Spirit Week of the year, which we are planning on having the week before April vacation. We are also possibly planning a outdoor pep rally, which would most likely take place at the end of that week. And the other thing that we are working on are spring fundraising ideas. We have a lot of great ideas from all of our members, so we're very excited to look into those more. And then when there's more details on those, I'll share them with you. And finally, Student Council will be participating in the MASC Spring Conference this Saturday in Worcester. It'll be a day filled with learning experiences and group bonding activities, and we hope that we will be able to apply the skills that we learn at the conference to our school and make our community a better place for everyone. That is all that I have for right now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Okay, so now we're going to open this up to public speak. Now, there are a lot of people here and there's no way we can listen to everybody. I don't know how many people want to talk, but we do have to limit it because we have a lot of information to get through. So I'm going to call on you in order that I see raised hands, and I'm going to ask you to state your name, your address, and to keep your comments to 3 minutes. All right, so first, Shelby, please. Shelby?
Hi. Can
Hi.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's Shelby.
Thank you.
I think there's two Shelbys, so there was a little confusion.
Okay.
I wanted to bring up an ongoing issue. Oh, I'm an Easthampton resident. I'm in precinct 4. I wanted to bring up an ongoing issue I've been seeing shared around various networks within the community regarding the principal stealing electricity from the city to charge a personal vehicle. To my knowledge, this has been occurring since last November, perhaps earlier. It's been documented and circulated around multiple times. I think we need to address and acknowledge the obvious bias that's going into the handling of this issue. For starters, this is theft, plain and simple. Not only is it theft, it's theft by a city employee of a city utility, but it's a theft occurring by someone in a fairly high position of power within their department. I want to note that the principal also elects to run an extension cord across a handicap access way. So not only is it an issue of theft, it also seems to be a public safety hazard as well. Most importantly, the police department acknowledges and is aware of the theft occurring. I want to ask you, do you believe this situation, this act of blatant theft, would continue to be ongoing if this individual were not a white man in a position of power? Do you believe that this would continue if the janitor were charging their personal vehicle at the expense of taxpayers, that they would be given this many passes? What if this person was a Black man or a non-binary individual or a woman? Do you believe that they would be getting the same pass? I do not. If it was a member of the DPW topping off their vehicle on city gas for free every day, do you think they would get to keep their job, or that they would not face prosecution by the police department? Because I do not. The police have pursued much smaller transgressions in our community, yet this blatant theft is allowed to pass. Why? Also, the situation highlights the implicit bias, whether that be from race, social status, personal relationship, or gender, that exists here. We need to consider that fact when we think about not only this issue, but all the issues in our community that are affected by this implicit bias, especially in situations that involve the police department, the same department that responds to accusations or suspicions of criminal activity, including but not limited to theft by or involving the youth in our community. Thanks.
Thank you. Cindy Mojica?
Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Mojica. I am the Diversity and Inclusion Liaison at the high school, and I'm here just today to invite you to our open house on March 15, 5:30 to 7. It's just the Diversity Center that is going to be open. So I know there's some parents that wanted to know what we do in the center, so we're going to have just an open house for them. So this is March 15, 5:30 to 7, room 104 at the high school. And if you want more information, you can email me at smojica@epsd.us. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, Jessica? You are on mute.
Sorry.
There you go. That's okay.
I was trying to figure it out. All right. The masking of our kids need, oh, sorry, Jessica Callahan. I live on Westview Terrace. The masking of our kids needs to become optional and become the parents' decision. What does the end of COVID look like? That's the question we all need to ask. Is it 0 COVID cases, 1, 10? For 2 years, we've been told by the CDC, Dr. Fauci, and DESE about the best way to protect ourselves from the virus. We've consistently been inaccurate. This Friday, March 11th, marks the 2-year date of when the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic, and that's when our lives here in the US changed drastically. When the CDC approved a shot for emergency use only for COVID, we were all told and hoped it would bring the end of COVID and stop COVID transmission. However, we're well into the availability of the vaccine program, and now not only of the length of effectiveness is in question, but we've also learned that the vaccine does not stop transmission, especially with Omicron. For some reason, natural immunity has never been part of the discussion, but it's real and it's effective. Some studies show it to be much more effective than the treatment plans and injections that they have released. Then there's the topic of masks. At first, they weren't needed, and then they were needed. At one point, the CDC said 2 masks are best, and then they moved to N95 were the best option. We've heard through this that any mask is better than no mask, followed by releases of information that masks can actually do more harm than good if you take into consideration actual germs and bacteria hanging out in masks, as well as CO2 levels. We've also heard about other negative unintended side effects, such as the horrific regression that students who already have speech delays are facing daily, as well as the increase in children who are being diagnosed and receiving services for new speech delays. Social cues by peers, facial expression recognition. The masks need to be optional and left to the parents. I work at a local middle school, high school. I can say without a doubt that as much as we try to stay on top of it, kids do not wear the mask as they're intended. They walk around all day with them drooping below their nose, full of mucus and spittle, not realizing it. They might need to change their mask. As much as I try to monitor all 200 kids at a given lunchtime, they're already back to sharing food off each other's trays, licking the same ice cream cone, drinking out of the same carton or can. I get slips handed to me weekly about kids who need constant reminders to pull their masks up over their nose. But with all that being said, this week, our district, the one I work in, we have 4 elementary schools as well as a middle school and high school with 1,865 people. And in that, in the last 14 days, we've had 2 positive cases in the entire district, that following a busy travel and holiday week with many people traveling outside the country. A lot of parents have said that they didn't want to vaccinate their children.
And 3 minutes. Sorry to interrupt. That's 3 minutes. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jean?
Hi, I'm Dr. Jean Powell Wilson. I'm a clinical psychologist in the area in Easthampton. I'm a resident for the past 20 some years, and I have 2 children who are young adults and who graduated from Easthampton High School. In previous weeks, you as a committee have said the mask mandates are in place because you said DESE said so, or because the Easthampton Board of Health said so. While DESE mask mandates have expired on February 28th, the Easthampton Board of Health rescinded the mask mandate on February 23rd, and the CDC federal government lifted mask mandates on school buses on February 25th. So why does the Easthampton School Committee still insist on a mask mandate, and especially on its youngest students? Even though we, parents, and other concerned citizens have been telling you what is important to us and to oppose the mask mandates, which means it can still be mask optional, you as a school committee must be doing it for another reason. The other thing that I can only think of is I'm following the money. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in Massachusetts, DESE, has allocated $2.6 million in 2022. But to count the in-person learning hours, the students need to be fully vaxxed students and unvaxxed masked students. So basically a student in the Easthampton school is only counted if he is vaxxed or masked. I've heard many in this meeting and other board meetings say, we don't have a vax mandate in town, but the same people will also say, we still need to keep the mask mandate so that vax rates can be increased. If this really were about health, why aren't we discussing the risks of the masks and of the vax? The mask mandate does not seem to be for safety or for health. It is to increase vaccination rates. Because in order to qualify for funding from DESE, which is our taxpayer money, this must be why you are insisting on promoting masking and vaxxing. Is it right for our money to be used in this way for recommending and mandating masking and promoting vax that parents do not want if they don't? Is it right to use one experimental unapproved medical intervention of masks to enforce students so they get another experimental unapproved medical intervention that has more risks than benefits? You can see the unfavorable data for yourself in the Pfizer report listing all the adverse events that Pfizer wanted to hide till 2085. And I wonder why. If there's nothing to hide, the answer is because there is something to hide. Please review that for yourself. I will send. And please, officials, I know that you have taken an oath to serve the public. So please take that seriously and think about the policies and decisions that you are making right now. You have no business requiring an experimental injection that everyone is a trial participant right now, and especially children, still technically EUA approved, where there is no long-term data on safety.
I'm sorry to interrupt, that's 3 minutes.
Okay, you are going against the Nuremberg Code, the US Constitution, and Massachusetts Constitution. Thank you for considering.
Thank you. So Shelley is next. Please state your name and your address.
Shelley Fournier, Maple Street in Easthampton.
Thank you.
I'm going to keep it short because Jean actually went into some of the areas that I wanted to, but basically I just would also like to highlight about the vaccine safety in children and how Florida Governor Ron DeSantis held a large open dialogue meeting. It was an hour and a half. You can find it on YouTube under Ron DeSantis's channel. And if you go there and listen, they in Florida do not recommend any COVID shots for healthy kids. They actually are very against this, and there's a lot of information there. And I really highly recommend that you guys look into this. And please remove the masks, make it mask optional. Anybody who wants one, maybe we can get something going to donate K95 masks. Like I know you guys have already had some donated, but for those that need them and are in a different situation with immune compromised, let them wear one if they choose to, but let the rest of the kids go free. I will also add, my son has been unmasked in school for over a week now, and he used to go to the office up to 3 times, sometimes more a day with anxiety fits. Since being unmasked, guess how many times he's been to the office? 0. He sits in his chair. He doesn't wander. He doesn't walk around. He's been sitting there, happy kid. He's been coming home. The behavioral issues I've been having at home have diminished as well tremendously. Please listen to us as parents. We're asking you. The science is not there. Let us as a parent make the choice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Ash?
Hi, I'm a 9th grader at EHS. I've been talking with other students, and many of us agree that the mask mandate needs to stay in place. In research, I've found that this is definitely the case, as Omicron is most certainly not the end. So first of all, the American Academy of Physical Medicine Rehabilitation estimates that 30% of people who had COVID, even asymptomatic COVID, developed long COVID. That's 23.44 million Americans. According to the Washington Post, a health policy expert and an epidemiologist in Boston University warned that this new relaxed guidance from the CDC mean that it will be too slow to stop the next surge that will inevitably be coming. Speaking of that, the latest potent variant, COVID BA2, has nearly doubled from last week. This is a subvariant of Omicron. It is also shown to be, also according to CNBC, it is 1.5 times more contagious than Omicron, and Omicron is already very contagious. And it has doubled in the percentage of all COVID cases from 6.6 to 11.2. And this is coming from the CDC. There's not enough data to show how effective one-way masking is. To quote an interview from the Huffington Post, quote, "There is no question that it is more effective for both the individual and the public health for a high fraction of people to wear good masks when they're in shared airspace indoors," said Alex Huckman, an aerosol scientist at the University of Denver. That's why disability advocates have written the CDC to change its guidance back to masking and distancing to protect our most vulnerable kids and adults, coming from the Disability Scoop. And so on a personal note, it is very stressful to be going around in the high school, seeing other students not wearing their masks properly, some of which, like, they're not even below their nose anymore. It's completely below their mouths even. And yes, I agree that there is not enough enforcement, but just yesterday, I saw a student, like I just described, with a mask below his mouth, walk up to the principal of EHS, and the principal said nothing. In other instances, I've seen teachers taking off their masks for no reason. And don't believe me, you can look at the cameras. There are cameras in there for a reason. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see anybody else. Let me, okay, Shelby. Okay.
Sorry, there were two Shelbys, so it got confusing. So I'm Shelby Hiven and I live at 62 Briggs Street. I'm actually here on behalf of the Easthampton Music Boosters. So I'm the parent of two middle school students who are part of the Mountain View Band program. And we did recently share a letter with the school committee that was mentioned at the start of this meeting. So while we are grateful for the many improvements afforded by our new school building, we share strong concerns about the shortcomings of the space carved out for the middle school band. We understand there may have been factors involved in the grant funding for this project that dictated what kind of practice and performance space could be built. However, the current situation does not appear to meet the physical and acoustic needs of our district's highly valued band program. From review of the new building's layout, feedback from the current staff at Mountain View, and reports from our children who are currently enrolled in the band program, here are some of our shared concerns. The first is sound. So the current Mountain View band rehearsal space is directly connected to the gymnasium on one side and a smaller adaptive PE space on the other side. And the only real separation for these two sound producing activities is a 2-inch movable divider wall. This creates an enormous amount of noise pollution in either direction, which is particularly relevant for growing instrumentalists who are working to learn the nuances of creating music, both individually and with others. We know there have been some additional soundproofing measures put into place or considered, but these don't appear sufficient for managing the degree of sound on either side of the stage space. Moving on to space, number 2, the currently designated band room housed in the gymnatorium at Mountain View is simply not large enough to contain the entire middle school band program. Even at Whitebrook, the band room itself was not large enough for the whole band to rehearse, and they needed to hold full rehearsals on the stage, which of note was considerably larger than the current Mountain View stage. One idea generated in our group was to swap out the band room and the adaptive PE room, which we know may have issues, but there is room on either end of the stage with concrete walls that could accommodate a climbing wall, ropes, and equipment, or perhaps moving adaptive PE into the main gymnasium and then have the band rehearse and hold lessons in the now adaptive PE room, which has more space and better soundproofing. And third is a concern about retention. So without proper rehearsal and performance space for both our students and teachers, we run the risk of losing student interest in this amazing middle school music program, which feeds into our equally strong high school band programs. This issue also raises real concerns about retaining our talented teaching staff. As taxpayers in this district, we strongly feel any student who participates in band has a right to have a space that is conducive to learning music. We ask that the school committee helps carefully and creatively consider ways to address these shared concerns with the goal of maintaining our band program's strong reputation in the region. We hope this concern might be added as an agenda topic for an upcoming meeting. And we thank you for your consideration and hope we can partner together to find a workable solution for all involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we are over our 15 minutes. We went a little bit over, that's okay. But we're going to close public speak right now because we have so much to go over. So thank you all for your comments, and we are going to go on to the next item on our agenda. So we have a healthy youth update. Okay.
So Cindy, if I may, we have Julianne Levin returning this evening. I believe she was, she presented a brief summary of the data from the Healthy Youth Coalition back before the first of the year. And I think she did it back at our December meeting, but that was a meeting that turned out to run very late for other reasons. And so the presentation was condensed, and it was the request of this committee that Julianne come back to highlight a few things and talk about them a little bit more in depth with you. So Julianne, welcome. Julianne's our Director of Curriculum and Diversity. So welcome, Julianne.
Thank you so much. And I am so happy to be joined by Rebecca Edwards tonight from the Easthampton Healthy Youth Coalition. And I just want to briefly thank you all so much, especially on International Women's Day, to have made the adjustment in the agenda to put presentations before some of the other pieces, so that when we are able to come to you, we can also cut off a 7 p.m. deadline for our babysitters so that we can then go take care of our children. So thank you for making that change. I really appreciate it. And happy International Women's Day for those who celebrate. I'm gonna share my screen, if that's okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Where else that?
Great. And Rebecca and I are going to start our presentation. Rebecca, did you want to say anything before I start?
Just hello, and I'm Rebecca Edwards. I know some of you, but there are many of you that I don't know. So I'm really happy to be here tonight with Julianne to talk about the coalition work and the prevention needs assessment data. And yeah, if you have any questions for me after tonight, please follow up with an email or a call, and I'll be happy to connect.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so yes, it was the December meeting that I originally came and shared some of the prevention needs assessment survey data. And following that presentation, we, the coalition and the district received an email from a community member sort of asking, what our response would be to these particular data points. I had shared some data points about substance use and about mental health. And so, that prompted us to, both on the district side and the coalition side, ask well, what are we doing? And how can we better communicate that to all of you? So we have a couple more data points to show first, and then we're going to get into some of the things that we're doing in response to the data that we've collected and continue to collect. So one of the things I was asked at the last meeting, Jonathan and Marissa were on school committee, and I think it was actually Jonathan who asked for a presentation of the this particular data set. So he'll watch this on YouTube or something, right? He'll get this data. I'm not worried. But one of the things that you all had asked for more of was, since we've been collecting this data over a number of years, what it looked like when one grade answered the questions over a 5-year trend. So what you're looking at right now is the students who just graduated in the spring, our 12th grade of 2021, how they answered some specific questions when they were 8th graders, when they were 10th graders, and then again when they were 12th graders. So this is the same set of students over 5 years. And if you look at the alcohol graph, that tracks with what we would expect. In 8th grade, very few students would have had any sort of alcoholic beverage over the past 30 days. By the time they got to 10th grade, which is that orange bar, some more have had maybe alcohol in the last 30 days. And by 12th grade, even more students using alcohol over the past 30 days. Some things that we found really interesting about this particular data set was if you go all the way to the right hand part of the graph, vaping. What we're thinking is that in 2019, when we saw more students vaping, that maybe there was some education intervention that was happening, or if you remember at the beginning of 2020, there was a vaping ban. It was like right before the pandemic, so it was like kind of lost in the turmoil that came after. But vaping was banned for a few months at the very beginning of 2020. So maybe by the time those students were in 12th grade in 2021, they were understanding more about the dangers of vaping, and thus were not vaping as much. Rebecca, do you want to add anything else to the slide?
I just wanted to add that, vaping is interesting because the students that we're working with right now, this is the thing that they're most concerned with, is vaping. The 21 data is skewed because of what was happening during COVID, and some of the students were taking the survey at home, some of the students were taking it in school. A home setting is likely or possibly less private, so possibly less reliable data. And so we are really interested in what our next survey is going to tell us about this 30-day use. But I do think that vaping in particular is going to be a target of our work.
Yep, excellent. Thank you. So another data point that we thought would be helpful to see was the perception of harm over that same 5-year trend. So how students answered in 8th grade in 2017, the same students in 2019 as 10th graders, and then again in 2021 as 12th graders. So the perception of harm question is, how wrong do you think it would be if you drank alcohol regularly, smoked cigarettes regularly, used a vaping product, or used cannabis? And then this graph shows the students who thought there would be no risk, or it would be not wrong at all to do those things. So you might notice the really interesting part of the graph here is the use of cannabis, and that as 10th graders in 2019, 25% of our students thought there was really no risk to using cannabis. You'll also notice there's no data for the 12th grade that year. And I think I mentioned this in my last presentation. That question wasn't included in the 2021 data collection. But the good news there is that we are doing a survey this year. It'll be a much shorter survey than the full prevention needs assessment survey is. But everyone felt like it was important to collect this data this year as well. All right, Rebecca, we're good.
Oh, yeah, I can just add that it was not asked, it wasn't left off intentionally. That question is deemed extremely important, and it was left off of a later version of the survey. And so we are all very sad not to have
Yes.
that data point, and are eager to be able to collect it this spring.
Yeah. The question we were able to ask on the 2021 survey was the perception of harm for caregivers question. And that question was, how wrong do you think it would be if your parents knew that you were using, in this case, cannabis? And so
Like,
this is
how
just
disapproving is your
right. How
caregiver?
disapproving would your parents be if you were using cannabis? And so this is just the 2021 data, but it gives us a little idea of where the 12th graders were in terms of thinking about how harmful their parents would think it would be if they were using cannabis. So we do have a little bit of data around the perception of harm for 2021, but again, we'll be collecting more. All right, so lot of information on this slide. I'm just going to give some highlights. Again, in response to the community member who asked, so what are you doing about these data points? We just wanted to go through some of the things that both the district and the coalition are doing really in collaboration to make sure that we are responding to both the substance use needs and the mental health needs of our students. So the first thing is about substance use. SBIRT is a screening that our school nurses give at 8th and 9th grade. And it basically asks questions about substance use. And then if those questions raise a red flag, there's an intervention tool and then a referral to treatment. A new initiative this year, we've really set social emotional learning as a goal for the whole district. And we'll be implementing a screener this year as a pilot screener, and the next year K-12 with student self-reporting in the upper grades to determine social emotional strengths and needs for all of our students. That is part of a larger initiative around the multi-tiered system of support. And again, not going to get into this too much, but I'm going to just flip the slide to show you the graphic. This is a Massachusetts Department of Education initiative, and it has been for a number of years. Like pre-pandemic, we were talking about MTSS, and it's great that it continues through because it is really everything we should be focusing on as a school district. And with our strategic planning that we've been doing recently, like this is our focus, is really strong tier 1 support. And that's what we give to all students. Every student gets a really strong universal support foundation. And then tier 2 is targeted support, and it's very flexible. Students flex in and out of tier 2, usually dependent on some sort of gap that's happening for them. And then tier 3 is intensive support, specialized instruction, specific perhaps to a disability. So within all of this, we are defining our social emotional programming. And so it sounds right now like, I could explain to you in great detail our academic tiered system with our assessments and our benchmarking and our Title I groups and our special education programming. But what we're doing is now we're really intentionally applying that model to our social emotional programming with the hope that we are catching students right when they're starting to have any kind of thinking that's not optimistic, or any kind of academic or behavioral struggle that is really reflective of a skill gap rather than in our tier 3 what would be considered a disability. So I really want to talk forever about MTSS, but I'm going to stop right now because I can read the room. So just call me if you want to talk more about tiered systems of support. Another initiative that we're putting in place for the response to the data that we are collecting are some also awesome collaborations with organizations all around us. So eCheckup to Go is a collaboration with SPIFFy, which is another prevention coalition organization in the area. And that's an online self-assessment and educational modules for disciplinary infractions involving substance abuse. So that's been a great collaboration to really think about how that programming can respond to students' needs and educate them as opposed to punishing them. Spirit of the Heart Martial Arts is a new collaboration that we're super excited about, that Rebecca is actually instrumental in the introduction. So I'll let Rebecca talk about that in a second. After I talk about Dial Self AmeriCorps, we were just awarded 2 full-time 10-month AmeriCorps members for next year who will be stationed at EHS, and really doing a lot of things that involve building our restorative practices and restorative relationships program. I think, Ben, I should call on you because you have a hand raised.
Just a super quick question. These are really great, these three organizations. I'm just wondering if there's anything that's student-led around restorative practices or restorative justice, because I think I really would love to see that. I'm just curious.
No, yes, thank you. Such a good question. So our partnership with Dial Self AmeriCorps, so those two AmeriCorps members will actually be being trained on youth-led restorative practices while they are part of our organization or part of EHS next year. And so that is actually exactly what we're hoping to learn from them. We're very excited about it.
Sounds good.
All right, so I'm going to continue on.
Can I just speak for a
I'm
second
sorry.
about the
Yes.
Spirit of the Heart?
Sorry, Spirit of the Heart. Yes.
And I just also want to say that I love that question. Keep asking us that. Like, is this student led? Like, how can we get more student led programming? I just keep asking that question. So Spirit of the Heart is a local martial arts studio that really focuses on like mind, body, spirit, holistic wellness for youth. And the owner of the studio recently joined the executive committee of the Youth Coalition. And one of the ideas for collaboration is that if students get caught up in the disciplinary process in the high school, if like part of their restorative practice, especially for a substance infraction, if part of the restorative process could be a potential option for them to participate at this martial arts studio and give their body something healthy to do, and as opposed to like other less healthy options. And I would love to see young people get really excited about this martial arts option and choose to be healthier, for, to take care of themselves holistically.
Thank you. All right, so this is just, I'm not reading all of these, I promise, but this captures some of the curriculum and initiatives that we have regarding mental, physical, and social emotional health this year. And there are a couple of things that say pilot on them because those will be things that we're fully implementing next year, not this year. And also this is not an exhaustive list. We are, every day this year asking ourselves what we need to be doing to, build back the culture of community, of healthy community in our schools. And there's always more to do, and we're really grateful that there's been grant money to support some of our SEL initiatives, but there's a lot going on. And if there's something here that you have a question about, please reach out to me. If there's something that you don't see here that you're wondering why we're not doing, it's likely I forgot to put it on here. So again, just reach out and let me know what you're thinking. I joked with someone the other day, like today is the day to ask me for SEL curriculum because there's such a need and there is really good funding for it right now. So I'm really feeling strongly that this is the time to really invest in our SEL programming and also, in our physical education, our wellness education, our mental health education. Let's all recommit right now because it's been a rough couple of years. Oh, Mayor LaChapelle. Do I get to call on people? That's a thing I get to do? Okay.
No, you don't get to call on people. But yeah, so I just have, I love what I'm hearing and was wondering with the new program that was Rebecca, around martial arts, is there transportation to get the children to and from?
That hasn't been built into the program, transportation, but it's a good thought.
Okay.
We haven't, the last time I talked to the administrators, they had kind of a few students in mind.
Okay.
But it hasn't been piloted yet.
Okay. Nope. Thank you very much.
Lori?
Thank you for that, Rebecca and Julianne. I particularly love what I see at the bottom of the list, the walk invite to school events. And Julianne, I was just curious, how did the professional development go for our teachers to help with the safe routes? Did that go well?
Yes, yeah, they met with now I can't remember Lucy.
Yes.
Yes, Lucy. Yeah, and I think you know, we'll just continue reaching out to her, and you know, everyone was like, Mike Powers is one of our PE teachers at the elementary level, and he was like, oh yeah, we've been planning for this all along. Yep.
So they'll be teaching the kids the curriculum, how to be safer as they take those routes. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much for making that connection with us, with Lucy. All right, there's more. I'm sorry, there is still more to the presentation.
Yeah, and just so the public knows, we closed public speak, so we can't take questions from the public. We can only take questions from the committee.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to pass this off to Rebecca.
Okay, so currently we're working with the high school. The Easthampton Healthy Youth Coalition is working with high school students who are helping to put together a social norms campaign. And this, I would say, is student-led. We gathered a group of students and got a few volunteers who are have been putting together. So the first, I should start with, what is a social norms campaign? So a social norms campaign is the idea that people, not just young people, but all people, have a perception of what's going on around them. And that probably that perception isn't actually indicative of what's actually going on around them. So with teens, it's very common that teens, for example, think, oh, all of my peers are using cannabis. I think like 90% of my peers are using cannabis. I'm not, but that's what it seems like. Really, everyone is. And so if you do a survey, you ask what their perception of their peers' behavior versus their behavior, or what they think of what their perception of harm is versus their peers' perception of harm, you get these huge disparities. And then what you can do is build a survey, collect the data, and then build a campaign around those disparities and say, hey, look, did you know that 75% of Easthampton High students are choosing healthy options over unhealthy options? That's a bad example. That wouldn't be on a poster, but the idea is that telling people what really good things the people around them are doing, because peer pressure really is a thing. And the coalition did something like that for parents. Before my time with the coalition, they did a positive norms campaign with parents. And so right now we're doing it in the high school. And so the students came up with the survey with some adult guidance. And the coalition we're partnering with a professor at Elms College who teaches research methods, and she's a community psychology professor, which I love, because community psychology is also my background, so I'm very passionate about it. And so the students created the survey. We administered the survey thanks to the principal and vice principal, who are the ones that asked us to do this. And then, so now we're looking at the data. And so the students are looking at the data and trying to decide which data points are most salient and believable, because the hard thing about a social norms campaign is you want, because of what people's perceptions are, you also have to find data points where they believe, wow, like my perception really was off. Because it's easy for people to be like, no, that data is not true. That's not really what's going on. People didn't really fill that out accurately. So yeah, so students are looking at the data, trying to figure out what's believable and what they want to turn into a campaign. And then they're trying to think of a theme that's going to be eye-catching for their peers. and where we are in touch with the graphic design teacher in the school, who is going to allow us to use their computers and programs. And the students will create the posters that will hopefully be behavior changing in a positive way in the high school.
Awesome, thank you.
So the Easthampton Healthy Youth Coalition is trying to work in a number of ways to support youth and families in Easthampton. For those of you who aren't super familiar with the coalition, we are at our core, we're a teen substance use prevention coalition. We're under the Drug Free Communities Grant, which is a 10-year federal grant managed by the CDC, and we're in our 8th year. So here are some of the things that are going on with the coalition right now. And if you're interested in any of these things, my email address will be at the end, and you can please get in touch with me. There is a new organization that's going into one of the mill buildings. It's called Learn to Cope. So this isn't one of our programs, but we're hoping to work with them. And at least I want you to know about it as a resource in the community. Learn to Cope is an organization that is peer-led, and it is supporting people who have loved ones with substance use disorder, or who have lost loved ones to substances and substance use disorder. So it's a really wonderful resource that's new to the community. We tend to do prevention work, but one thing that gets asked of us is, okay, well, what if we're in the weeds of this? What if we have a teenager or a loved one who is using substances? Where can we turn? And this is one of the places that you can turn in the community. We started a parent advisory group recently. My colleague, Ann Talley, who's our outreach coordinator, and her email is also at the end of this presentation. And hi, Ann, I think she's probably on the call. So Ann is running the parent advisory board, and we try to be as needs responsive as possible, just as a coalition. And so we really are listening to the parents who show up to these meetings. And the primary need that we are hearing is fear around and the desire to learn how to monitor the social media use, the technology use, how to set healthy boundaries, like what to be concerned about in terms of what's out there and how youth are accessing it. So we're doing a number of social media and technology literacy events. We had one for middle schoolers. We have one coming up for high school, not middle schoolers, the parents of middle schoolers, the parents of high schoolers. We're going to be collaborating with the Northampton Coalition to show Screenagers 2 about screens. And then one more event for elementary schoolers down the road. You can keep an eye on our Facebook or join our mailing list to hear more about that. You may have heard some really scary news recently about fentanyl overdoses. So we are going to be doing a fentanyl education event in probably April, and also an attached Narcan training to that. The coalition, the Easthampton Healthy Youth Coalition, we are in the health department of Easthampton. And so we are working within the health department to support getting Narcan trainings into the community and nalox boxes in the city building, as well as in the high school to add to, they already have Narcan with the nurse, but we're going to get them one more box, and a little bit more training for administrators. The coalition, one of the things that is really important to us is that we are accessible to everybody in the community, that we are inclusive of all identities. So we are focusing our upcoming winter retreat on equity and diversity, and are bringing in facilitators from the Collaborative for Educational Services. That's coming up on Monday, and we're really excited about it. I know I'm talking fast, but I don't want to take up too much time, and I want to say everything. So the last thing is I'm sure many, if not all of you, are parents, and please, if you are interested in teen substance use prevention and want to join us, if you have ideas for events, please join our parent advisory board. Come check us out and let us know what is keeping you up at night that we can help address in our community.
Thank you.
So I think this is my last slide.
Yep,
maybe.
this is it. Yep.
We're currently running a safe storage campaign. We are asking people to join us in locking up their medicines, their cannabis, any substances in their homes. Put it in a locking medicine box, put it in a locking pouch, or make a plan that works for your family. Maybe that's keeping it out of sight, up and out of reach of children. We're not telling you how to do it, but we're asking you to make a plan that feels safe and secure in your home. And you can take a pledge. We have on our website the safe storage pledge that's asking you to just make a plan, secure the substances, medicine, cannabis, and whatnot in your home. And we are raffling off 20 locking boxes to anybody. You'll be entered the raffle if you take the pledge. And if you take the pledge, we will also know that you're out there doing good things, keeping the community safe, and being part of the coalition work. So we would love for you to participate in that. And here's the contact for all of us. Julianne, thanks for leading this.
Yeah.
Can I jump in and ask a question? Oh, sorry.
Megan has a question, and probably other people do too. So Megan, you're first.
All right. I just was wondering, as you were going through some of the other things that parents are concerned about, given the potential overlap with sort of internet, social media concerns, and some of the information that we've been receiving as school committee members about the Wait Till 8th program, I'm wondering if there's an overlap or like a opportunity for that to sort of, is that consideration for part of that programming?
So the coalition has considered the Wait Till 8 program really carefully, and I've had conversations with some of the folks who are really motivated toward it. We are going to include it on our website under resources so that parents know it's an option. The coalition tends to focus on activities that are more education based and that are like promoting dialogue among families, I would say. So like that, we have the same goal in mind, which is to have safe use of technology, and we're just approaching it at different angles. But we love that they're in the community doing this work because it gives families more options.
Great, thank you. Thank you for this presentation. This is really helpful.
Megan, I just want to jump in. I will talk about that because I was able to meet with Rebecca last week. Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions?
I just want to put out appreciation. Thank you so much for doing this important, information gathering. It's really critical to have this kind of data to understand what's happening in our community, both as parents and as school committee members. And so I just want to thank you very much for all the work that you put into this and the ongoing work that you guys are doing as well. So thank you so much.
And I want to thank you for coming back because, we didn't feel good about asking you to come back, but it was part of a much larger piece that we really needed to hear. So we're glad you did. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. All right. Well, thank you so much. Bye. All right. So now we have the Easthampton High School Program of Studies.
Right. We have Mr. Evans here tonight. And I think you received the document with the proposed changes. So, Mr. Evans, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to present our program of studies for next year. I don't think that I can share my screen, but I'm not sure if everybody wants me to. Do you have access to the one page changes? Okay, so I'll just go through them. There are 6 items on the list. And the first one on page 11, we removed the survey column from the grading scale. So this was a grading scale in the GPA that was assigned to certain courses. Those courses no longer exist. They were courses that we do not use a survey grading scale in any of our classes. So we simply took that column out. It was misleading. Should have probably been done previously. Item 2, we've added 3 courses to the list of English courses that are being offered next year. So just broadly, the reason that we are adding courses is that we are making a curriculum shift in the next couple of years to move students away from taking in the English progression from going from English 9, English 10, English 11, and English 12, or AP options in 11th and 12th grade, to more elective options in 11th and 12th grade. So instead of English 9, 10, 11, and 12, it would be English 9, English 10, and then a choice of AP or some of these other options as we're starting to develop new courses that we think will be of higher interest to students and provide a vehicle for learning the English standards in a way that is a much more engaging for kids. So 3 courses that we're adding to the program of studies this year: pop music as literature, Broadway showstoppers, literature alive, and contemporary literature and storytelling. I think that the titles are fairly self-evident, but pop music looks at lyrics and actually pop music, the history of pop music going back a ways into contemporary times to look at different ways that artists have used literature, lyrics as literary devices. Broadway showstoppers had a big hit this year with 9th grade English. Ms. Daybeck taught Hamilton as a vehicle for English, teaching the English standards, and students really responded well to that. So this course is designed to, again, center the standards around Broadway shows. And then contemporary literature and storytelling really looks at both our contemporary literature as a vehicle for storytelling, and storytelling going back a ways as well. So those are 3 courses that we'd like to add this year. Item 3 on the list, those are, so the first 3, the number 2 just says we put them in, and then number 3 says those are the, that's where you can find the course descriptions for those 3 classes. Number 4 is we added college and career readiness for juniors as a 4-credit for semester-long course. This was originally listed as 2 credits as a quarter-long class. We'd like to offer it next year as a semester-long class. We have not been able to offer quarter-long credits, so as a result, this course has gone by the wayside. We'd like to reintroduce it. It's been in the course in the program of studies, but not been offered, and we are actively offering it this coming year. We believe there's a real need and a real benefit for our juniors to take this class and think about really start planning in their junior year for what lays beyond high school. So the change is from a 2-credit to a 4-credit class. And number 5, these classes that we have taken out of the program of studies, 022 English, 023 Science, and 025 Math. These were special education classes, and we do not teach classes that are specifically for special education students. As a result, instead, students take what everyone else takes, English 9, English 10. They don't take science, they take biology, they take earth science. They don't take math, they don't take a separate math class, they take one of our regular math classes integrated with teachers of English, science, and math. So these courses are no longer part of our program studies, as we don't offer separate classes for a separate population. finally, this item number 6 is the removal of the ITP 059 study in transition skills. So this was put into the program studies as a separate class for students that were designated to the ITP program. ITP program is not based with a teacher, so it doesn't have a separate study in transition skills class attached to it. It's more of a clinical or a social emotional learning support, and not any classes attached to it. So again, we felt it was deceiving, misleading to leave it in the program studies, so that's been taken out. So those are the changes for the upcoming year. Happy to entertain any questions.
I actually have a question. Did I hear you say you're removing senior English as a requirement, as a graduation requirement, or just you're adding electives?
Yeah, so it's not removing. English is still a 4-year graduation requirement, but instead of only AP or English 12, we want to start adding elective options so that students have more choices in what they take in 11th and 12th grade, but it'd still be a 4-year graduation requirement.
Okay. How much writing would there be? Here's my concern. Current junior and senior English is very geared towards making students college ready. And these sound wonderful. I would love to take each one of them. But are we offering them in lieu of taking a course that is going to get you more college ready? Is that the plan?
So no, I wouldn't put it that way at all, but I appreciate the question. You know, the great thing about English is when you look at the English standards, you have lots of different ways, vehicles by which students can attain the standards and master the standards. And so if I want to learn how to analyze English, written English literature, I can use any types of literature, many different types of literature. So the standards that are being taught in English 11 and English 12 remain the same.
Okay.
But the packaging, I think, is different to pique student interest and get them to be more engaged.
Okay, thank you. That is my concern. I was worried about the standards, especially since, you know, colleges are really asking us to do our very best to get kids prepared for that. So
yeah, and you know, we have a pretty rigorous college preparation program, but of course not all our students are college bound, so we want to make sure that all students have an opportunity.
I agree. I agree. Okay, thank you. That was my only question. Anybody have questions, Maren?
Well, I just want to appreciate that as a concept. You know, somebody who struggled with English as a class. I think the most important thing about ways to engage our students is to make it relevant and interesting to them, and to being able to then pick a specific type of English class like the pop music or Broadways or things like that really allows them to be assured that they're going to be interested in what they're reading, which is going to make them better students and learn more through it. So I think that's awesome. I'm really excited by that trend. I would put a little quirk in there, or not a quirk, but a little maybe request that we should look at possibly a science fiction and technology bent, because we have students who are really into technology and may not really understand how that cross relates with English. And so if somebody connects that technology with in their English class, it might be a stronger way to get them engaged and interested as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that suggestion, Maren. I think we have lots of great ideas about ways that we could reshape the classes in the upper levels for English. One of my goals is to ensure that there's classes that focus on multicultural literature. Science fiction is a great genre to explore. I'd love to see an African-American lit or Latin American lit, women in literature. These are things that I hope we can add moving forward. Right now, we're just trying to build the courses up, get them on the program of studies, get them into the thing. You know, the way it works is if students like a course, then word of mouth is your best advertiser for getting them populated. So We're just trying to get them started, but we have lots of ideas, and I appreciate those as well.
Ben?
Just as a community college English professor, like I see, people fresh out of high school, and one thing we've learned is that themed classes are huge help in retention and keeping people involved in the course. So I think those are great ideas. I teach a composition class, freshman composition class on the history of hip hop. And, there's like you could take any one hip hop song and spend 2 weeks on it because there's so much complexity in those songs, and students learn about critical thinking through the lyrics. So there's an enormous potential in those courses.
Yeah.
Also environmentalism too. Environmental lit is a huge burgeoning genre that can help prepare students for life in a very pronounced way. So it's another idea.
Great. Well, thanks for the feedback.
Yep.
I also like the college and career readiness for juniors. I think that is, I've seen that as a program many, many times, and it's really beneficial. So it's nice to see that added.
I believe, just for us to keep moving forward, I think do we need to take a vote on this to approve? So I would like to make a motion that we approve these program study changes as drafted by Principal Evans.
I'll second that.
All right.
Race you to it.
Any more discussion? Okay, Lori.
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Megan?
Megan Harvey, aye.
Ben?
Ben Hersey, aye.
Maren?
Maren Goldstein, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle?
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
And Cindy Kuzensky, aye. And I'll take all three of those courses.
Thank you all very much.
All right, and we're going to keep the theme with the high school going. We have, I think Brian Miller is here this evening, and we have the baseball boosters that wanted to get a moment of your time. So, Mr. Miller, you can take it away.
Hi, so we're here tonight seeking permission for our baseball team to travel to Cooperstown, New York, Baseball Hall of Fame, to play a game at Doubleday Field. So it's an out-of-state trip, so we need to get permission from the school committee. So I was just here to sort of propose that. Any details, I'm sure Coach Zahowski or members of the Booster Club could give you more information about that.
What is the time frame for that, Mr. Miller?
The game, they're leaving on May 13th and playing Saturday morning, the 14th.
Thank you.
And how are the costs being covered on all that, from transportation to housing and all of that such?
From funds raised by the boosters.
Okay. And when are they coming back? On the 15th?
The 14th. So they'll go Friday, stay overnight, play Saturday morning, and come back after the game Saturday.
Wow. Okay.
Do they get to go to the Hall of Fame?
That's a good question. Coach, do we know that? I hope so.
We have Maria Kolpak here with us this evening. That was a question that we were trying to get answered. The game's actually at 1:30 in the afternoon. So depending on what our schedule is, we'll get in late Friday night. So I don't think we'd be able to go on Friday. And I'm not sure what our timetable is in the morning, but certainly it would be something everyone would love to do. It just might be a time crunch for us. I think the real excitement is about going to play on Doubleday Field and the historicness of the park itself. You know, the greats of Babe Ruth and the like have stepped onto that field, and to give our student athletes an opportunity to have a similar experience is the highlight for sure. I'm not sure if Ms. Kolpak has any other thoughts on that. I think she's with us this evening as well.
Yeah, hi. I think it's going to be a time thing. With the game's at 1:30. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to get there in the morning. It's definitely something we can talk about and And if so, then, that would be something covered by the booster club as well, if we decided that we would do that. I just don't know if we'll have time.
Any other?
I'm just curious. It sounds fun.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Any
It's
other
something
questions?
that we were trying to get done prior to COVID. The Booster Club's been very active in raising funds for a number of years now. And we're hoping to do it, like I said, 2 years ago, and we're just really hoping and excited that we can get that experience for the kids this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to allow the trip to Cooperstown. Thank you, boosters.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay, Lori?
Oops, I would
All
just
right, guys.
add in there, I'm sorry, if I,
Go ahead.
just another comment, just, obviously, even as we're going to be talking about COVID and masking tonight, I still think that as we're traveling to other communities, to make sure everyone's safe and conscious of all of those different safety precautions as we're traveling together and traveling to other communities. So
Thank you. Okay, so Lori, you said yes.
Yes, I made a motion and I'll say aye, and I do hope they get to the Hall of Fame, even for a couple of hours. It's phenomenal.
Okay. Megan?
Megan Harvey, aye, and I appreciate the sentiment of being careful about COVID. We'll see what happens, and hopefully May will be great, smooth sailing.
Yep. Ben?
Ben Hersey, aye.
Maren?
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle?
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
And Cindy Kuzensky, aye. All right. Okay, on to the school calendar.
Thank you.
If only everything went that smoothly. The school calendar, we're going to table that to the next meeting. So we're going to move that off the agenda and we will address it next time.
Dr.
And-
Leclerc, can I just ask about the calendar?
Yes.
So when we discuss the calendar, are we going to discuss also the addendum to the calendar that the Equity Committee has been talking about? Is that going to be part of the discussion?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome. So the next is a COVID update. And so I've just prepared some information for you. I will be brief. It's just on one little sheet of paper. The COVID response team met this afternoon, and I shared the following data with them to assist them in making an informed decision, because I think this decision is not based on emotion and feelings, but rather data and information. So the response team met, and I let them know that currently we have 1,300 students and staff testing weekly in our school. We have 855 tests being sent home to staff and students on a weekly basis. This is out of a total population of approximately 1,600 staff and students total. So we have by far the majority of our staff and students are being tested at least once, if not twice, per week currently. We have high vaccination rates in our schools. Just a reminder for everyone, 82% of our middle and high school are vaccinated, our students, 60% of our elementary students are vaccinated, and 95% of our staff are vaccinated. New cases last week, I didn't send out my weekly update. One of the concerns that some communities that held on to masking in schools last week brought forward was that there might be a possible spike in cases after the February vacation. Easthampton did not experience that. We had 5 new cases last week in our schools, 2 of which were staff and 3 students. This week, we currently are holding at 1 new case. I also want to remind this committee and the community that's listening that we as a school district have made every opportunity available to become vaccinated. We have another vaccine clinic tomorrow. It's walk-in and appointments. We've done them we've done multiple vaccine clinics in our schools, and we've made testing available to anyone that has wanted it. So based on that information, the COVID response team unanimously decided that their recommendation is to lift the mask mandate effective immediately in all schools in Easthampton, with the caveat that if the CDC the new guidance from CDC and the color levels and or the Massachusetts DPH color levels goes back into the high categories, we would review the need for masking again. Dr. Harvey doesn't anticipate that will be anytime soon, but we're just putting that caveat out there. So I know that this evening you will be reviewing the mask policy as part of the policy subcommittee update, but that is the recommendation of the COVID response team. And I am a member of that team, and I was part of that unanimous decision. So I will put it out there for anyone that wants to discuss it, or you can wait until you get to the policy subcommittee section. That's all I have for an update. Thank you.
Do we want to wait until we continue on? Okay, so we have subcommittee updates. So Maren, would you like to weigh in on our finance update?
To weigh in. Yes, thank you very much, Cindy. Yeah, so the finance subcommittee obviously has been meeting weekly up to this point. Just yesterday, we had our first overview budget meeting where we sort of start to really look at how all the different numbers start to balance out, and we start to try to make plans on how to proceed and bring a budget out of committee and to the school committee. We did call for a second meeting, and so we'll be meeting again this Thursday at 6 o'clock. So if you're interested in attending, please join with the Zoom available on the city website. So in a little bit of a recap of some of the key things that we're looking at. So the mayor, again, put forward a requested budget that is looking at a 1%, 2%, or 3% level increase. And so we are seeking to look at ways to achieve that and be able to meet what her request has been. That being said, we are going into a budget review process that has a recent teachers union salary increase with additional steps and lanes that is already at 2%. And those positions are, roughly 2/3 of our budget is built in with staff costs. So that's already a significant push that has us at that 2% level. In addition, we have some really significant fixed cost increases. This inflation that is happening for all of us at an individual level obviously exacerbates at a district-wide level. The most impacted of that of all is transportation. And that's not just an inflation issue, but also directly related to the citywide decision to move to a single pre-K through 8 school in the center of the city, which is further away from most of our residential areas. So a number of more buses are needed to be able to meet the needs of our students across our district. We're looking at potentially needing to add 5 more buses. So going from 7 to 12 buses, I believe that's the correct number. And so that's looking in and of itself, looking at a $500,000 increase in transportation costs. So there's some really significant built-in fixed costs that we have no ability to sort of evaluate or change. And so what we're in the process of doing is looking at how those costs can be supported by the district, and also looking at some of the other places where we can make some really smart coordinated decisions around what we then do budget as we consolidate from the elementaries and middle school into one school. Obviously, that gives us a lot of great opportunities to look at how our running some of our programs, special education programs, our teaching positions, all of the different places that we are looking at how we can sort of utilize that consolidation in the best way possible. I know that there's a lot of concerns around increasing class sizes and looking at the potential for some positions, some teacher positions being reduced. We are certainly looking at ways to minimize that as absolutely possible and still try to stay within that sort of 1%, 2%, and 3% budget level. And so that's what we're looking at and reviewing. And that's really what's going to be the biggest piece of Thursday's conversation, is how to sort of look at all the different factors that we're taking in and how to still sort of meet the mayor's budget requests. So that's what we're looking at. Those are some of the key pieces of how to really meet a very clear request by community members to keep our class sizes as low as possible, to really maximize our students' educational opportunity and to deal with the pandemic impacts on social emotional learning and the extra supports that those students need. And having them at too high of a ratio would obviously minimize the support that they would get. So we're trying to really look at ways to balance all those different needs out and yet still sort of meet the budgetary needs and limits that both the state have for us as well as the city has for our budget. So those are some of the different key pieces that we're looking at and how to sort of minimize reductions, do the most consolidations that we can do in a smart way across our district and still meet all the different sort of fixed required cost increases that are required of us. So that's sort of an update. I don't know if there's any questions that this committee has. Again, just to sort of finalize this, we'll be meeting on Thursday to sort of finalize the budget, and then that budget will be brought to this committee with whatever comes out of that meeting. Will be brought to the committee at our next meeting, and that is then where we'll be finalizing that and then passing it on to the mayor and thereby to the city council.
The only thing I'd add to that is that I really encourage people to watch that meeting on Thursday. We're going through a lot of tough decision making. We're weighing a lot of possibilities, and the last meeting was long, but I think really important and pretty successful in terms of trying to figure out this massive issue. So I welcome people to sit in and watch that meeting. We will, when we bring it forward, Mirren does an incredible job of weighing and presenting all the issues when we discuss it and vote on it, but certainly watching it grow and watching how we're processing and what we're asking, I think is important for the community. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Okay, so next is policy subcommittee minutes.
Was everybody able to see the minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the minutes? Ben, would you?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to approve the policy subcommittee minutes from March 1st.
Wait, time out. We don't need to approve those through this. Most of us weren't even at that meeting, so that's not, I don't believe that's process.
We're just accepting them. We're just accepting them.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you're right. Sorry, I was looking at letting people in. So yeah, so we have them submitted. Everybody had a chance to look at them. Now we go on to the big question at hand.
So I would like to say that we had a lot of people attend the meeting in the audience. There were 2 people that spoke one person spoke, she never said her full name. She was questioning where our COVID policies are. And I assured her, especially the mask policy is digitized and it's available on the links that we have now to the district website. And we did have a lot of discussion, and Dr. Leclerc participated in that discussion. And at the meeting, I made it very clear more than once that I felt as a subcommittee, we should not be making any changes to the MASC policy brought forward, that we should discuss it here in a full committee. So it was fascinating to me to receive emails with my name attached from some people that weren't even at that meeting, who put words into my mouth that I never said. So we do have those, we do have a recording available if anyone would like to watch it, but I would like to set the record straight that I did say, as a teacher who went back to a district that was unmasked right after vacation, that I felt safe, because even though I'm at risk, I did not say I was immunocompromised, I'm at high risk, there is a difference. Even though I'm at risk, I listened to science, and I specifically quoted what Dr. Harvey had stated in one of her reports, that if you are with two people wearing flimsy masks or just even the surgical masks, you are not as well protected as if you are in a room of unmasked people, but you yourself are wearing a good mask like I do, a KF94. And I made that very clear. So I said that even though I'm at risk, I feel safe teaching in a room with unmasked students. So once again, it was really interesting because it's almost like an adult's game of telephone, but it becomes bizarre through different areas of technology and social media, how your words can be completely changed when they come back to you in an email. So I would like to say that we wanted to keep the MASC policy as it is unless there's further discussion. And we were able to take off a part of that, which had to do with busing, because when we talked about it last week, they had just changed the federal policy about being mandated to have students wear masks on buses. And as we discussed, we would rather keep the policy the same in the school and on the buses. So that was removed from the policy, that the latest version that you received today in the committee. Are there any questions about what we talked about before we bring it to a vote as it stands? And we did talk about briefly maybe waiting for elementary schools to look at different data that came in, but then we decided not to make that change. So once again, you know, the public was all up in arms, but we decided last week to not add that to the policy. And it was great for if anyone wanted to discuss it here tonight on the committee, then we could approach that, but we decided not to.
Okay, so I see somebody's hand raised. We cannot call on you. So this is not something we can't take comments from the public because public speak is closed. So this really has to be a discussion with the school committee. Megan,
But she just said if anybody has a question. I just
No.
want to know what you
No,
guys are
the
voting
school
on at this
committee,
point.
no, excuse me, this is just among school committee elected members. And that's another thing, you know, so many people criticize what we do on school committee, especially what we've done during this pandemic. We've made such challenging decisions to help educate our students and protect our community. But even though there were so many criticisms, we didn't have many people take out papers, only Megan and Ben, and we're so thankful for them to step in because especially Dr. Harvey with her scientific knowledge coming onto our committee and taking over on the COVID response team. It's just been they have been wonderful additions. So I have to acknowledge that tonight.
What I would ask, I think would be helpful, and I think this is what, while not the right timing to ask a question, as was already mentioned, I think it would be helpful for the public who doesn't have the documents that we have in front of us to have a reading of the policy so that so the public is clear about what we are voting on specifically. That's, I think, what the question is, and I think that's what would be appropriate for us to do at this time.
So Cindy, do you have it? I don't even have the screen. We can put it up, or I can just read it out. So we are going to replace our original face covering policy, which is labeled as EBCFA, which is the current policy. And we're going to discuss if we are going to vote. And before we do that, because this is only after a first reading for our committee, before we're able to vote, we have to make a motion in order to accept it after one reading. So
Right, I have it in front of me if you'd like me to read it.
I have it right here also.
Could we share it though? Share it on the screen
Could
too
you
for
share
people who.
it, Dr. Leclerc? Do you have it right up on the screen to share it?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me make it a little larger. Can everyone see that?
Yes, thank you.
So the Easthampton Public School District is committed to providing a safe environment in schools during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Maintaining a safe environment is critical to the district's ability to ensure students remain in a full-time classroom learning environment. According to public health experts, one of the best ways to stop the spread of coronavirus and to keep members of our school community safe is the use of face masks or face coverings. Therefore, in accordance with guidance and recommendations from the Center for Disease Control, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, the following requirements are in place until further notice. A face covering that covers the nose and mouth is strongly recommended to be worn by individuals who remain unvaccinated and or otherwise immunocompromised in school buildings and on school grounds, even when social distancing is observed. Individuals who are vaccinated are not required to wear a mask, but may do so if desired. Students and staff returning from 5-day quarantine following a positive COVID test must follow strict mask use other than when eating, drinking, or outside, and conduct active monitoring for symptoms through 10 days of exposure, through day 10 of exposure, sorry. Masks will be required in all school health offices. So you can see here, the only time masks will be required are in school health offices, like when visiting the nurse, or if you are coming back after having COVID within that time frame. But other than that, it is recommended. And I would like to say that what I did mention last week as well, one of the reasons where I feel more comfortable, even though we heard from a student who feels that other students have also said, and we've received emails and messages from people who feel hesitant to bring their names into the public now because they still feel like they want there to be a mask mandate, that I can say from having taught for a week and a half, it's not a week and a half yet, in a school that has lower vaccination rates, there are still a lot of students and faculty who wear masks, and no one is harassing them. No one is making them to feel like they shouldn't be wearing masks. And in fact, I asked a couple of my students today who are now some of the few. Before, when we first came back last week, a lot more were wearing them and fewer are wearing them this week. And I asked the students this week that I could talk to if they still felt okay wearing them, because that's important to me, that students and adults who feel that they still need to be protected by masks will not feel hesitant to wear them because of reactions from people. The students I asked said, no, they feel fine. So that made me feel even better to make this a mask optional community, as long as we are supportive of anybody who feels they need to wear a mask.
So I'm just going to toss out first my concerns. For me, it's not if we're going to stop masks, it's when and how. And I feel pretty confident about the high school We have a very high vaccination rate, and we also have a new building. So if you think back to when we first shut down, the first building to open up was the high school. We now have a new middle school. And again, we have higher vaccination rates, but we also have a very brand new, open, large, well-ventilated building. I mean, we're very excited to have that for our middle school right now. My concern, and maybe I'm the only person who is worried about this, but we have 3 very old elementary schools. And we kept worried about even opening up those buildings for the longest time. We went through air quality tests. We put in filters. We've discussed over and over what the needs are. Obviously, we need our new elementary school, but we're not there. We're not into that yet. So my concern is not so much for the high school and the middle school, but it really is for the elementary. We have a much lower vaccination rate, and we do not have the buildings that we have at the high school and the middle school. We have very, very old buildings. And when we put HEPA filters in, it was for masked students. And now we're talking, Lori, did you want to say something? Because I wasn't quite finished, but
No,
go
you
ahead.
keep on, because
Okay,
I have to tell you, we've discussed all this, so keep going.
So I'm really concerned about the older buildings. I don't feel really confident. However, I'm not saying we should stay masked the whole time. I would feel a lot more comfortable if we waited till the end of the month, which Springfield is doing and some other towns are thinking about doing, because then we're into April. And in April, we can have students out as often as possible. We can have windows open. We also have another month, not quite a whole month, but a few more weeks of numbers going down. And so from my perspective, I would feel much more comfortable opening up. Yes, and I promise I will call on you, Lori and then Allison. I would feel personally more comfortable in terms of our buildings with starting with the high school and the middle school and going at the end of the month with the elementary. Now, I know you already talked about that. I'm not sure what you came up with, but I'm letting you know that's really where my biggest concern is. And here's the difference. Everybody keeps talking about the different cities and towns. We have one of the oldest buildings in the state. So yes, there are elementary, I work in a system with a much younger elementary school. It is open and airy and the ventilation is very different. The reason why we built a school is because our schools are outdated, our elementary. So I continue to be worried about the elementary. I'm not saying we should wear masks all year long. I believe that in the spring, we can do this and be a lot safer with the elementary. I will be quiet. Lori wants to talk. Megan does. Dr. Leclerc and Ben. I'm sure the mayor hopefully will weigh in, and Mira. But I wanted to let you know that's a big concern for me.
So thank you, Cindy. And as the policy committee person, I brought up all of those concerns. In fact, some of those concerns were taken out of context and reported back in emails. So just as you had said, you know, what is a few more weeks with the students who have been masked for so long, if we can wait and revisit it. We talked about that, and that was just part of a longer conversation. But as many people have brought up to us, the kids are already unmasked everywhere else. They're already unmasked in all of their extracurricular activities. They're unmasked when they go out. If their parents want them to be masked, and as a family, if they have decided that they need to be safe for certain reasons, we can help supply the child size K N95s. We can make sure they have proper masks. And that's a family's decision right now. You did mention other districts, and I'm glad you brought that up because that was also such misinformation that came from many people, even people who work in our district, saying, you know, throughout the Pioneer Valley, everyone else is already unmasked. That is not true. Northampton is still masked. Amherst is still masked. Springfield is masked. Elementary schools in Hampshire Regional, even though Hampshire Regional itself went unmasked, some of the elementary schools are masked. I'm just trying to set the record straight. Once again, the misinformation that comes to us. But as a district, I feel that we can lift the mask requirement for all levels because I feel, as I said before, that students can be masked if they need to be. And I feel that teachers can open the windows even though it's cold. I keep my windows open even on the coldest days. And that does help in the elementary school, even with the HEPA filters. I know our high school, it doesn't help with opening the windows. In fact, we were told to keep the windows shut. But students, if teachers decide and if families feel safer to have the windows open, even if we're gonna have some cold days, hopefully we're gonna have warm days soon. Snow's coming this week again, who knows? But I do agree with what you've said about our old building, Cindy. But I think that our community, and we've heard from teachers who are parents, and especially young children who have had difficulties with phonics and learning to read and learning to speak properly and social emotional needs. A few more weeks for these families is just too much. So we discussed that last week.
And I hear you, but I just want to say one thing. I know the city is unmasked, but there is a huge difference between walking into a store for a short period of time and sitting in a classroom with unmasked people for 6 hours a day. There's a huge difference. I'm not worried about the middle school and the high school. I am worried about the elementary. I cannot compare. I've heard people say that, well, you're out in the community and you're unmasked. There is a huge difference between sitting next to other students unmasked for 6 hours. So that was my only thing. Now, I know Megan and I know Allison and Ben want to weigh in right now. So Megan first. Your hand was up first.
Well, I have some things to share. So if Allison or Ben have shorter, okay. All right. So I do have a couple of things that I want to share. As I shared during correspondence, we received many emails, and most of them were really respectful or neutral. And I do want to say that there were some emails that assumed some really bad intentions on our end that were disappointing, partially because, in some of the emails, I've said and written that, information about masking and the quality of the mask the person is wearing versus what the people around them are wearing. And folks are sort of like throwing my own words back at me like I don't remember writing them. So I just wanted to say, this committee, in my experience in the past 2 years, has been really concerned first and foremost with the children in this community. And I hope that good intention and assumption of good intentions can extend. It's hard to be on the receiving end. We're people reading these emails. That being said, I also wanted to say, and we did have one parent who emailed us about this, and I want to also say it, I think it's really important as we consider a mask optional policy and what exactly that means. It's really hard to have children feel comfortable and staff members feel comfortable choosing to have a mask on if they encounter protesters outside of their school who are telling them that masks will kill them. And that masks contain chemicals. And that, I know that's an isolated incident, but it did happen. I have information about several children that it deeply impacted. And I just wanted to go on the record and say that is really not acceptable, especially if we are hoping to make a mask optional policy in which folks feel comfortable choosing to wear their mask. I've also written about this before, and I know that folks know that I write those weekly updates. And so the committee reads those weekly updates. And so you know all of the things that I have sort of been considering and that public health and epidemiology considers in this masking stuff, like case rates and the burden on the healthcare system, and all the information about vaxxing, which we have gone through in terms of benefits and effectiveness and safety, including a really thorough discussion of adverse events. Any sort of idea that this committee or this city is like glossing over and just cherry picking some information is, I just wanted to point that out. We did talk at the policy committee meeting last week about ventilation, and I looked and got the ventilation reports and the update after the ventilation reports went through. Thank you for sending those over, Allison. And the air quality in those 3 elementary schools, which I agree with you, Cindy, I'm concerned most about the 3 elementary schools for 2 reasons. One, we have our lowest vaccination rates in those subgroups, and because the buildings are of such poor quality that we were given a grant to build a new school. And so I do feel really strongly that while the air quality in the update, we did reach 4 air exchanges per hour, and the range of sort of acceptable air quality is 4 to 6 air exchanges per hour. I would really, really love to see, guidance at the school level that windows will be open in those buildings. I know that's not a case with the middle school or the high school. Those have completely different types of HVAC systems. That is only true of Center and Pepin and Maple. And I know, the balance of sort of, do you wait for warmer weather so it's not cold air flowing in, or do you open now and take masks off? I think the community is pretty clear that they would prefer to have masks off. And we have really good evidence that opening the windows will increase that air ventilation, from the 4 exchanges per hour, which is sort of the minimum acceptable level, to a higher level, and that will really help. Let's see, I had other things I wanted to say too. I think we got some great information about sort of the pros of masking and also the challenges associated with masking. And I think any public health decision and like policy level decision is a balance of the rights of the individuals versus our responsibility to the group, and that includes vulnerable individuals. And we have seen a really dramatic decline in cases in Easthampton that's been mirrored in the surrounding county and counties. And that, I think most importantly, is translating into wastewater analysis. So there's some sort of questions going on about like how accurate are case reports, and they probably are inaccurate to say it's definitely 13 per 100,000 versus like 17 per 100,000 new cases per day. I don't think we can get that level of information. However, the decreases we're seeing in the wastewater is really encouraging. And I spoke earlier in the COVID advisory meeting about the importance of identifying for families what that sort of on-ramp, off-ramp looks like. So I think, that the CDC guidance and hopefully the Massachusetts DESE guidance will be aligned to that soon. I think that provides a really nice roadmap. And as Allison pointed out, if we ever reach that red high risk group again, I think it's a time to consider an on-ramp. But what I think the flip side of that is that when we have the opportunity to off-ramp, we sort of get goodwill and sort of mask. I know there's mask fatigue. And so using the safe opportunities to do so, I think is important. I also hope if we do a mask optional policy that we can get administration and teachers, particularly in classrooms where there are children or families that have high risk situations or folks who are immunocompromised or unvaccinated for any variety of reasons. Maybe there can be sort of a classroom specific focus for that teacher and that sort of admin on, we heard a nice update from one of the nurses earlier that some administration, some principals are talking about continuing to wear a mask in solidarity with students who are wondering if that's going to be socially acceptable to continue wearing a mask.
On that point, one of the things I forgot to say, and again, I may be the only one. I think that starting tomorrow, whatever we vote to drop a mask mandate tomorrow is not a good idea. I think that you start it next Monday, whatever we end up doing, because if you're talking about having kids and families and administrators and teachers prepare students and prepare themselves. So that takes a few days. Today is Tuesday. There's, if you were going to do this, my again hope would be that we would do it starting Monday the 14th. That's just something I forgot to say the first time when I was talking. So now I know we have Allison, then we have Ben.
Thank you. So respectfully, I'm just gonna identify a few things, remind people of a few things. Megan just mentioned, we had the air quality studied at our elementary schools, and we met or exceeded the air quality in all the classrooms. If we didn't, if it wasn't up to 4 air exchanges per hour, which was the national normed airflow standard, then we added filtration. So all of our buildings, all of our elementary schools meet or exceed the 4 air exchanges per hour. And if we open windows, that further adds more air exchange. So, yes, the buildings are old. They are probably not as of the air quality level as the new schools are, but they are at the standard that is nationally identified as the appropriate standard, or they exceed that level. Number 2, I want to be clear, the administration in Easthampton is not interested in a separate mask decision for different grade levels. We do not want to micromanage that as a school district. If I have a family that has an elementary child that's required to wear a mask and a middle schooler that is not required to wear a mask, that's just going to be a nightmare for our administrative team to handle. There were already challenges last week around the state dropping the mask mandate and Easthampton not. I think that our messaging was pretty clear and most people were very respectful of it, but I don't want to put our administrators in that situation where they have to be confrontational with parents. So I would rather, if you're going to vote not to rescind the masks, then just keep it on for everyone, because it's just not appropriate to separate it out. And I don't know of any school districts currently that are doing that. I know Hampshire Regional, which is multiple districts that has multiple school committees, has made different decisions, but we are a one school committee, one city. So I think we have to go all the way. Third, I would just like to be, I'm trying to be real concrete and not let emotions come into this. I want to be real concrete. We don't have a case in our elementary schools currently, right now. There are no cases. So I'm not really sure what we're thinking of masking for, because the case numbers are not there right now. And, the last thing I would say is
Oops, you muted yourself.
Sorry, the school community is ready to make this an impact tomorrow, not next week. And by that, I mean, just to give you quantifiable data, you've heard from staff. I shared with you a survey that was done with staff. I heard from Sean Sheehan, the union president today. The union is ready to move to a mask optional procedure. So we've known that, we've surveyed them, we have the data, we've shared that with you. They're ready. So our staff is fully ready and capable. I think families in this community, and making this assumption, I'm not a family in this community, but when they removed masks in the city of Easthampton, parents were able to flip that switch immediately, with their children. I think that people are adaptable and they can move. And for anyone, I've got messages ready to go out if that's the decision this committee makes. The decisions will go out, immediately, the information. And for anyone that wears a mask tomorrow, that's still fine. That's acceptable. So, so I'm just putting that out there as points of information. I'm not looking to, be oppositional with anyone. I just wanted to be clear on some of those comments. It's not a matter of air quality at the elementary schools. We've met or exceeded the air quality standards. These buildings are not pretty, but they have decent air quality.
Well,
I just don't want that rumor to get out there because we spent $25,000 on a study. So.
You met that air quality, but again, my concern is those classes are tiny. I've been in those classrooms. I've been in every single building. When I first was elected, I made sure I went into every classroom in every single building to see what's going on. Those are tiny classrooms. Those kids are
they are tiny, but they also have very small numbers of students because we purposely decrease the number of students in the smallest classes.
Okay, Ben, and then I'm hoping Maren and Nicole will weigh in before we.
Yeah, I think that what I'm going to say has in large part been said by a variety of people. I feel confident, especially in the fact that that case numbers are going down. I think Hampshire County is still higher than anywhere else in the state, if I'm not mistaken, which is a little bit of a problem, but there is ample evidence. It seems like everywhere I look, I'm seeing plenty of reasons why we should take this, as you said, Megan, like an opportunity for an off-ramp. I think we should take that opportunity and experience life without masks. So as one administrator in the district said to me, like, so that we should take them off so that we can put them back on if we need to. There are problems that I'm like pretty concerned about and worried about, and I think this has been mentioned, but I'm going to say it too because I think it needs to be said again. I really want to see some serious leadership around protecting kids who do want to wear masks, because not only are kids themselves truly able to make some decisions for themselves, and I know plenty of parents don't believe that necessarily, but I think we want to protect kids according to what they feel safe doing. And then there are families in our district who have immunocompromised, unhealthy people in the family. I know a few at Maple specifically who I think about every day practically, and I'm really worried about them. And I'm worried about the population, even if it's a few people. I'm not comfortable with the idea of us kind of just moving on and going like, well, you wear a mask if you want to. Like, if in my mind, it's masks, as I recall, were meant to help other people as well, help stop the spread or whatever you want to call it. So yes, we have to be thinking about ourselves and our family, and and there's a huge movement in this country around parents' rights and education. You have to do what you have to do, and I want to respect that, but we're in this together, and we live in this district together, and the passion that flowed into my email box the last week or so is pretty pronounced, and I respect it, and I also love parent involvement. I kind of came into this role as a parent advocate, and I want to see parents speak up and talk and get involved, and that's a messy process. And for you folks who are feeling that mask fatigue and who are angry and frustrated, I hear it, and I want to invite dialogue with you because we're in this together, even if we disagree. So keep protecting the kids who want to wear them. I'm hoping that the admin, whether it be principals or teachers and staff, will throw masks on as much as possible. Maybe like Bill Evans, you'll wear it all the time. Please keep that in mind. Keep in mind the fact that there are people in this community who are struggling and are not being served by removing the mask mandate. That said, I think we can do it, and I think we should try to do it. And I personally feel like I've heard stories already from several teachers in the district who have been preparing their students. They're already at work at that. If I'm not mistaken, Maple's doing some stuff around that. I don't know if Judy led it or if there are just individual classes stepping into that and trying to prepare the kids. From my understanding, like the families that I know are also, talking to their kids about it. There's a lot of communication going on. Anyway, so I want to encourage families to stay involved. I really love the emails. I hope they keep coming, and not just about COVID. Because if we take this, eventually, I want to move into like a world where we're talking about policies in the school community, and I want you parents to come and talk about those as well with as much passion as you bring this issue. So yeah, I think that's my main points. I think we should give this a try, but I'm also open to continuing to listen to all ideas.
Maren, did you have anything you want to say?
Well, of course. Yeah, I think that there's a couple different pieces for me, and again, a lot of pieces have been said, so I'm not gonna go on extensively about them, but I cannot reiterate the importance of supporting students who choose with a mask optional policy that they keep their masks on. We have to make extra diligence around making sure that those students aren't targeted, that they are supported. I know that we have masks at different schools, so I really hope that, and Dr. LeClaire, you could speak to this, but that we have masks ready, the N95, KN95 masks ready for any student who wants them to put on, so that they can make that choice when they come into our buildings. It's critical that we support those students, and so if they want to do that, they should be able to do that, and we should have those resources for them. Of course, then anybody who doesn't want to be wearing them, I think that's where we're headed in terms of this choice. I also I think that it is really important, as Megan sort of said it, the pathway off also has to have a pathway back on. I think we need to be very diligent about paying attention, not just to our local community, but to what's happening state and national level, around where are those numbers that if they do start to spike back up because of some new variant, we have to be able to make a quick turnaround and move back to looking at this policy again and possibly making changes again. So this isn't a one decision and we're done with COVID and we're all just good again. I think that it's important that we keep our both eyes open and we stay strong as a community and communicate. I also really appreciate all of the communication that we've had. I hope people do stay engaged, and we need to keep paying attention to all of this. So I think that's a really critical part, to be aware and continue to pay attention to this for the rest of the school year and for as long as we have to. So I just wanted to say those couple key pieces, and we've already been going on for a long time, so I won't stay on the soapbox any longer than that, but I'll hand it off.
Thank you. Mayor?
Thank you, for all of the comments from my fellow board members, but also from the public. And I feel good as a mayor, as an elected official, of what we've done as a city over COVID for both in and outside the schools. I think we've approached it as rationally as we can in a rational time, and not knowing a whole bunch about the virus, and also knowing what we have to do as far as emergency use of things to stem and saving thousands and thousands of lives. Because of the strength of what we've done and what we've talked about today, I'm in full support of rolling back the masks throughout the schools starting tomorrow. So that's my 2 cents. I don't want to, we've all talked a lot, so, but that's the short of it. So, but thank you everyone for the comments and the input.
Lori, Megan?
I was just going to say, I think that we need to make a motion to be able to vote on this and after one reading. But if Megan needs to say something else, I think we've said a lot. So Megan, do you need to say something else before we make that motion?
Yeah, I do. To Cindy's point, I think it's actually really reasonable for this group to consider. It's 8:14 right now, and folks may or may not be able to see the results of this vote before school tomorrow. And I think it's worth considering Cindy's thoughts here about, what is the official repeal date? And is that perhaps, tomorrow is one option. So is Thursday. That gives a day for administration to send an email and message to families. That also gives teachers time to talk to students about it and families to make a decision about what to do and talk to their children about it. Children who arrive at school tomorrow who haven't had a conversation with their parents about what their family choice is, what do they decide to do about taking it on or off? It's just, I would put that back out for this group to consider. And then a question is that if we are making a motion and approving a policy, would we need to put in things like our desire to have strong leadership from administration and teachers, around supporting the kids, or is that just sort of implied in what we're talking about?
Yeah, we don't need to add that.
Okay, we're just hoping that they will do that. And opening windows, I really want them to open.
Let you know, some districts did add a lot of things like that, and consequences if people felt harassed, but I don't think that's necessary at this point.
I would like to see language about strongly encouraging at minimum, like windows open and support from leadership. I don't know what the rest of the committee feels about that. I don't know about consequences, but strong encouragement to do the things that we know will keep the classroom safer.
But those are, Megan, those are really practices and procedures. They're not a policy. That's for me to be held accountable to manage with my administrative team. And if I'm not held accountable to do that, then, that would fall on your evaluation of me.
Great, thank you. That clarifies the question, if that's part of the motion or not.
Yeah, I think that also, I just add there that I think that for us to be able to move forward with this tonight as a first reading and fully accepting, we can't really go in and tweak it too much with new language. So I think that for us to be able to proceed, we need to understand that difference between policy and putting in practice by the administration.
I do have one small wording change. It's a 5-day isolation, not a 5-day quarantine.
That was MASC. Good for you for catching that. It was vetted by their attorneys.
This is just one last comment before we get into the vote. I wanted to just shout out OSHA's comment at Public Speak, the student from the high school, because it illustrated to me that like this conversation hasn't really included students at all, and it's a kind of an interesting question, like what do the students want, what do they need, and it just signals a kind of silence that I would like to populate with more student voices going forward. Not that students run things, but that students are part of the community and they have a voice here. They're, in a sense, they're also our constituents.
One pushback again, and I'm sorry, I'm dealing with the nuances. I understand it's getting late, but you have over 100 people on this Zoom. And if you don't think the people that are listening tonight are going to spread the decision all over social media so that if they don't get my email, they're getting it on social media, or someone on social media is going to say, go check your email. And I only bring it up because you're setting me up and you're setting the administrators up. If you are going to make this motion to rescind this policy and make it effective 2 days from now or 3 days from now, because I guarantee at least 100 people on this Zoom call right now will have their kids show up without masks tomorrow. I'm not encouraging them to do so, but I'm just saying that that's the reality living in this social media world, and we're on a social media platform right now. So that's the caution I put out there. You're setting us up.
I would push back and say this. One, not everybody is on social media, so there are a lot of families who are not going to know this. That is not, you cannot assume that everybody will know this. And there are many districts that still have a mask mandate. And if we choose tonight to start it on Thursday versus tomorrow, then students would be expected to wear a mask until Thursday. That is not too much to ask. And that is something that administrators and teachers can talk about with their students. So the idea that everybody's going to know, I would just toss back that that is not necessarily true. Lori, you had something you wanted to say?
Yes, Cindy, I just feel that at this point, waiting another day is just going to set up teachers for discipline issues. Working in a high school, it's just, you can't, people are going to know, even if they're not on social media. There are many people on, this isn't social media, this is a Zoom school committee meeting, and people can call people. I just feel that if we change the policy tonight, we can't say wait till Thursday or wait till Monday, because it's going to be too confusing for families, for students. And I feel that this is something that's been discussed in the community. It's been discussed among us. And I feel that our teachers and our administrators will handle it well tomorrow. And I really believe that they will support those students with families that need to keep their children masked, and the teachers. And if we start to hear of things getting disrespectful, of bullhorns outside our schools yelling at students, then I will come back to this committee and ask us to revisit this.
Well, so let us, first, let us just decide to whether or not we're going to accept this at the first reading. So I think if somebody put a motion forward to accept it as a first reading, and then to implement, and then we can just discuss and take a vote. But let's at least do that one piece.
So I make a motion that we vote after only one reading to change our EBCFA face covering policy to match the MASC updated policy.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay, any more discussion?
This is not a vote about the date in which that would start. This is
Nope.
just that would start
Just
at some point.
First reading, if we vote to accept it, can we implement it? That's it.
Okay.
Okay, Lori?
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Megan?
Megan Harvey, aye.
Ben?
Ben Hersey, aye.
Maren?
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle?
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
And Cindy Kuzensky, aye. Ben?
Dr. Leclerc, can you send out a robocall about this?
I
We
can.
haven't
I have
taken the
that time.
vote yet. Yeah.
Well,
I
mean,
can.
I'm saying if we
Yes.
to make sure
Gotcha.
that we can get the word out.
Yes.
Okay.
I think here's one thing that I would throw into this conversation about date, right? So I really appreciate the comments that sort of asks us to be intentional, right? We want to make sure that we have time to talk to our students, to really have times for the families to talk to each other and to review that and sort of be a very intentional decision about who's going to choose to be mask optional, who's going to take the masks off, how it's going to affect their friends and things like that. So I think that being intentional is really important. The reason why I would say our community has already had those conversations is because as a city, they rescinded the mask requirement on the 23rd, right? So we've already had that intentional conversation happening in public spaces and in restaurants and places like that. So I think that those conversations, those intentional conversations among families is already happening and has already probably happened as much as we can expect it to happen. So I don't personally think the difference between saying effective immediately and effective Thursday or effective Monday makes a difference. I think our families have already had those conversations because what's happening in our community. So I feel comfortable with the desire to have those intentional conversations, recognizing they've already happened, most likely, and that it's okay for us to go ahead with an effective immediately as date for this.
I'm
Anybody
concerned that
else?
that's an assumption. I think the bus comes from many people in 12 hours. I'm concerned that that's an assumption.
The buses are still federal.
You may not unmute.
This is not a public weigh-in right now. Okay, any more discussion?
Dr. Leclerc, can your robocall please include a message of kindness and compassion to everybody in this community and to allow people to feel safe being masked wherever they want to be?
Yes.
At this
Do you have a
point,
motion?
yes, I would like to make a motion to move EBCFA face covering policy to follow the updated version of MASC starting tomorrow, which is March 9th.
I second that.
Okay, any more discussion? All right, here we go. Lori.
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Megan?
Megan Harvey, and for the record, I wish that folks had a little more time to talk to their children about this. This is a big change for some families, but I will vote aye.
Ben?
And Hersey, aye.
Maren?
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
And Mayor LaChapelle?
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Okay, and the last vote is not going to matter because we have enough to pass this. I will say, I thank the community for helping us keep safe during these years and bearing with us. I do not feel comfortable with the elementary. I feel very comfortable with the high school and the middle school. So because I have to stay true, I'm not afraid to be an opposing vote. I have to stay true to myself, and I wish the elementary was at the end of the month. I'm going to vote no, but the motion will pass, and it will pass for tomorrow. Okay. And thank everybody for weighing in and staying as long as you did to find out.
So,
all right.
I'm not done with policy yet.
No, I know you weren't.
Okay.
We're
So
going
thank
on
you,
to
everybody.
medicine.
We did bring up one other policy, which was policy JLDC, administering medicines to students. It was an updated policy, but we didn't have the correct information. So we have tabled that until our next meeting. And we will set up another meeting soon, Ben, because we have some other policies that just came through. Okay, so I'll be sending you an email to do that.
So that one's on the agenda, but we're taking it off?
Yes, we tabled it.
All right, okay. And that'll be March 22nd, or is that going to be at a future time?
We'll try to get a meeting in next week, but I have to get in touch with them and see if everyone's
Okay,
available.
so no promise as to when we're going to do that.
But we will try, yes,
Yeah.
to bring back the other policies that have been sent to me today in our next meeting, the end of March.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Is there any other before we do our minutes? And our
yes, well,
payroll?
I did meet with Wellness Committee as well. Did you want me to talk a little bit about that? I'm just going to be very brief. Okay, so wellness is very different now. We used to have like a big district committee, and we've decided that I would be meeting with smaller groups of people. And I think we mentioned this last time and discussed the topics and dealing only with the people that are in charge of that. So I had the pleasure of meeting with Rebecca Edwards and Dr. Leclerc last week, and Rebecca went over many of the things we talked about, but I know there's been a lot of discussion about weight to 8, and I just want people to know that we discussed that in depth. And it isn't something that the Healthy Youth Coalition is going to endorse with what they do. They have many other things on their agenda. But as Rebecca stated, she will have a link on their website, which can inform parents. But they really are into helping families formulate a media plan and promote dialogue. I do have to say that We have a lot to discuss about this Way to 8 program, and I know there are many people who are passionate on both sides of the topic. We seem to have that a lot, especially here in Easthampton. So whereas many people are saying that it's essential, I did watch the video, the YouTube that Hatfield did a couple of years ago, but there are some people who feel that if we endorse it as a school committee and as a district, it also entails judging and shaming. I do have to bring that to the table. So we have to discuss it more. But I did say that I feel that families have the right to know that the Way to 8 campaign exists and that we should provide all the information necessary for everybody in our community to make that decision on their own. So whereas we're not officially endorsing it, we are promoting the information so parents can get it out there and understand what's going on. And I'd like to, this is a complicated conversation, so it's something that we can put on an agenda in the future. But I just want to know it's very helpful when I do receive respectful communication from members in this community who talk about both sides. And once again, it's always about respect. So that was one of the main things. And also Rebecca, talked about everything so well with Julianne tonight. So vaping is really a target of theirs. And also I feel as a wellness committee, we have to really help curtail any vaping that goes on, especially in the schools. So we'll talk more about that. But as an other, can we just do a quick other? Or do we want to move on, Cindy?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to say that it is International Day of Women, and I found out a very interesting fact that relates to us. So on March 29th of 1880, Louisa May Alcott voted with 19 other women for the first time at the Concord town meeting. Yes, that was before being given the right to vote, but guess what they could vote for? The only thing they could vote for, though, was school committee. The year before, the Massachusetts legislature had bowed to pressure from suffragists and agreed to let the Commonwealth's women have the limited franchise. It would take another 40 years for the 19th Amendment to pass, recognizing women's right to vote. But there actually were two districts that in 1868 that allowed women to vote for school committee. And that was Ashfield and Monroe. And they actually let women serve on their school committee. So a little bit of history on this special day.
Thank you. Now the Way to 8, you're proposing that we put it on a future agenda? So
I think that it's a very complex discussion, and I think that we need to have more facts and information. Yes.
Okay, so maybe in April, or at least May. All right.
I would love a presentation if that's possible, just to learn more about it and be able to ask
I know
questions.
that Hatfield had a presentation done before they even decided to start talking about it. That was part of the vote. So I think
so. I can help to set that up once you tell me when it can be on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Any other Ben?
Indeed, I think we talked briefly about the possibility of having a discussion about CPAC on a future agenda. This one was pretty crowded, so perhaps anything coming up would be great. I know there's energy, there's real energy there, and that's an invaluable resource we can get going.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Any other?
Have another other.
You have another other. Okay.
Yes, I
go
do.
ahead.
Yes, so I have my annual meeting, every meeting update on the PTO, which I am keeping tabs on, and they're sending me updates on what they are working on to share with everybody. They had a great and very successful winter scavenger hunt around downtown Easthampton. My family participated in that, and it was really fun. So thank you to the PTO for that. They are in the midst of a Meadow Farms fundraiser, and they are doing that to raise funds for a variety of things, including an end of the year performance and enrichment event for families. They're planning a family bingo night in May. And as always, they encourage folks to contact Ann Talley or Megan Kellybag to get involved. They are always looking for parent volunteers. There are ways to donate either directly and or to set up your Amazon Smile so that it donates some, however Amazon Smile works, some portion of your purchase or something. But it's an easy way to support the PTO.
Thank you. All right, are we done with the others? Okay, so then we have minutes and payroll, and that'll be it. Final announcements, and we'll be out of here. So we turn it back over to Megan. You're on mute.
Sorry, hang on, I'm pulling it up.
Okay.
I minimized my screens and I have too many open. Give me a moment. What has happened to it? Okay, I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the February 8th, 2022 regular meeting.
I second that.
Okay. Lori?
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Megan?
Megan Harvey, aye.
Ben?
Ben Hersey, aye.
Maren?
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle?
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
And Cindy Kuzensky, aye.
I would like to make a motion to approve the school payroll dated 2/10/2022 in the amount of $570,012.86.
I second that.
Okay, Lori, sorry, I
Laurie
did it
Garcia,
before the
aye.
second. Megan?
Megan Harvey, aye.
Ben?
Ben Hersey, aye.
Maren?
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Mayor
LaChapelle,
LaChapelle?
aye. Oop,
And
sorry.
Cindy Kuzensky, aye. No, that's fine. I love when you all go in order and just jump in.
I would like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated 2/10/2022 in the amount of $623,172.25.
I second that. Laurie Garcia, aye.
Megan Harvey, aye.
And
Ben Hersey, aye.
Maren?
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Cindy Kuzensky, aye.
I would like to make a motion to approve the school payroll dated 2/24/2022 in the amount of $566,821.98.
I second that. Laurie Garcia, aye.
Megan Harvey, aye.
Ben Hersey, aye.
Maren?
Aaron Goldstein, aye. Apologize.
That's
Mayor
okay.
LaChapelle, aye.
Cindy Kuzensky, aye.
And lastly, but not leastly, I'd like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated 2/24/2022 in the amount of $254,263.14.
I second that. Laurie Garcia, aye.
Megan Harvey, aye.
Ben Hersey, aye.
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
And Cindy Kuzensky, aye. Okay, so that is all of them. Our next meeting is March 22nd. It is a public hearing on the proposed budget for 2023. And our next regular meetings after that are April 12th and 26th. Okay, so I thank everybody for attending, weighing in, for your emails, for your diligence over the last couple of years, and we'll see you hopefully at our next meeting. All right, thank you. Let's roll call out. Oh, wait a minute. Dr. Leclerc has something she wants. Oh, you're just saying goodbye. She's just waving. Okay, so let's roll call. Let's have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, and we'll call out Lori.
Laurie Garcia, buenas noches.
Megan.
Megan Harvey, good night.
Ben.
Ben Hersey, good night.
Maren.
Aaron Goldstein, good night.
Mayor LaChapelle.
Mayor LaChapelle, good night.
And Cynthia Kuzinski, good night. Have a good night, everybody. Stay safe and see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.